Greetings, fellow social workers. So, for the Grand Challenges of Social Work project, I think we should do the topic of promoting smart decarcerations. Now, this is a topic that I hold dear to my heart. Unfortunately, I've witnessed firsthand the inequities that take place within the prison industrial system, and there are many, many that could be listed. But for one, just to get started, what I've got to witness firsthand was just a level of depravity and inhumaneness of the whole system, the entire system, and how it interacts with people. It truly does treat people like cattle or property. And it's a very sick way of society to try to fix a problem, which is crime. And what should that answer look like? Well, I don't know necessarily if I have the answer for what that should look like, but I do know that the system that we are working with doesn't work very well. And a lot of the people that I hold dear to my heart are also people that have been convicted of charges and have also spent time. It's easy to ask these people too, okay, so what did you get out of your time incarcerated? And, you know, there is some good things about it. For one, as a drug addict, one thing that the system can do is if you're addicted to drugs, you go in and you detox and you come out and you're not physically addicted to drugs. So it'd be low of me to say that there are no benefits of it. However, I think if you ask anybody that's been institutionalized or incarcerated and ask them what they received out of the whole process, and it would always be usually a net negative, right? They lost their family members during this time. I can't tell you how many people lost loved ones when they were locked up. Their children are growing up before their eyes. They're not getting to be active parts of that. And sometimes, listen, sometimes these sentences are warranted, but regardless, the system that we do have is inhumane. And it would be different if it worked, but it doesn't work. Our homicide rate is 5 times that of our European counterparts. And that's just one of the many statistics that, about our institution. The one thing about it is there is a lot of statistics. That's why I think this is a healthy topic, because there's just so much ways to go about it. And, why do I think you should care about, decarceration? Maybe some of you don't have any family members that have been incarcerated. Some of you don't know of anybody that spent considerable amount of times locked up. Well, to that I say, there's other things that this involves. This isn't just about locking up criminals. I mean, do you care about racism? Well, the prison industrial system is one of the most racist entities in the entire world. Blacks are incarcerated at a rate of 5 times that of whites, and that's from the Sentencing Project. Do you care about families? I know a lot of people in here are working with children and families. Well, over 5 million children have experienced the incarceration of a parent. And currently, there are 1.5 million children in the United States that have a parent who's incarcerated. And what kind of effect does that have on these children? The financial stress of the families that whose loved ones are incarcerated, the generational trauma this creates, watching a parent get incarcerated and then spending time without them, emotional well-being. What impact does this have on the children involved, or the loved ones involved, or the parents involved? And just the general burden of having someone in your family incarcerated and not there to be a productive member of society and contribute to the family. And that's just on like a micro level. You can just broaden that to the communities that are missing large parts of their population because of incarceration. So many of these things, I mean, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the crack laws of the 80s, but it's almost like overnight we witnessed these huge sentencings for nonviolent drug offenses that, just now, and I think it started with Obama, that we've started to take a look like, hey, wait a minute, maybe this wasn't right that, African Americans receiving, 10 years in prison for 1 gram of crack, while a white person gets incarcerated, gets locked up with a kilo of cocaine, and they're measuring those as if they're the same thing and get less time. So it's a pretty twisted system, and it's got built-in racism. I mean, it's like I said, it's one of the most racist institutions in the world. Go inside of a prison, doesn't matter how open-minded an individual is. There's certain rules, and these are things that stick with inmates when they get, released. I work with a lot of inmates and former inmates at the Shepherd's House, and there is a significant problem with trying to come out of that system and reintegrate in society. There's rules in jail and prison, and I'm not talking rules like you gotta make your bed or that. I'm talking about social rules that you have to follow. Kentucky's not one of the bad states with it, but there's certain states and certain areas like Florida jail, California, where there's certain rules that are very hard to break once you're released. So, like I said, I think this would be a very healthy topic. There's a lot of subtopics we could go. Some of these could be like exploratory in nature, like how does incarceration affect mental health? How does incarceration, like I mentioned, affect communities, particularly poor and underserved communities? I mean, this is a large percentage of your population that's just not there to contribute. Or we can look at more solution-focused subtopics, like why are European systems so much more successful at rehabilitating their inmates and reducing recidivism? And then another thing we can look at with the solution-focused is like, who are the opponents of decarceration? Or should I say the proponents of incarceration? Because there most definitely are. If you look at certain companies like Securus that does the phones in a lot of jails and institutions, they've been sued multiple times for price gouging, and they yield, record profits year after year. And it comes at a cost, and it comes at a cost to poor people and minorities mainly. And then you have companies like Bob Barker, not the TV host, rest in peace, but another company by the name of Bob Barker that has an annual revenue of $43 million. And so these are vested interests that are set up to make sure that the system does not change. They want to keep it the exact same so that they can make money. And this just touches on all the National Association of Social Workers, their values and the ethics. If you look at the service value, helping people in need, these are people in need, regardless of the crimes that they committed. Social justice, this is an area rich for social justice topics, specifically regarding race and inequality. Most importantly, the worth and dignity of a person. Hey, listen, these people have committed crimes, and people can get better, and they can be valuable members of society. So what I want to look at in conclusion is basically fundamentally changing the nature of incarceration from punishment to rehabilitation. It takes it's going to take a huge movement to do this, a huge push, and it's got to come from all different levels. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, it would be one thing if our system worked, but it doesn't. It just flat out doesn't. It doesn't make people better. Like I said, if you ask anybody that's spent time locked up, ask them if they got anything quality out of it, and generally no. If anything, they met new connections and learned how to do better crimes, bigger crimes. So another reason why I think this grand challenge is better than the other ones, because for multiple reasons. It's specific, like it's tangible. This isn't a lofty thing. This is something that we can measure. Oh yeah, there was X amount of people incarcerated in 2023. Now there's only blank incarcerated in 2024. So it's very measurable, and we can look at the races and statistics about it too, to make sure that this is happening across the board. Because we don't want just decarceration for whites. We want decarceration for everybody. Doesn't matter what the socioeconomic or racial background. And finally, like I said, the U.S. makes up less than 5% of the world population, but we have 25% of the world's inmate population. So this is something that needs to be rectified, and I think that this would be a great avenue to do it in a discussion like this. Thank you. Have a good night.